Hey Praxis, what's going on? Chris Rodriguez here, and I'm excited to start a new series with you, Isms and the Church, where we're going to take 4 weeks and we're going to look at imperialism, elitism, sexism, and racism from a Christian perspective. This week we're looking at imperialism, and when I think about imperialism, I'm reminded of my favorite book series by C.S. Lewis, called the Space Trilogy. The first book of the Space Trilogy is called Out of the Silent Planet. And warning, there's going to be some spoilers, but the book was written in 1938. So if you haven't read it, that's kind of on you. It's about a guy named Ransom. And he's a professor, and he gets kidnapped and taken to another planet. Now, at this time, Mars is just some far off place, and we have all these imaginations of what it will be, but he goes to the planet Mars and finds out that there's life there and that there's beings. He begins to learn the land. He begins to learn their language. He even begins to befriend some of these beings. One of those friends invites him on a hunt, and while they're waiting for the hunt, he begins to ask his friend a question. If your neighbor has something and you want it, how do you go about it? Do you take it from them? This being from this planet didn't even have a framework to answer that question. His response is something like this: why would I want something that somebody else has? Doesn't God give us everything we need? You see, on this planet, there was no concept of sin or a fall or original sin. So they didn't even have a framework to deal with a broken idea of taking something that doesn't belong to you. Later on, we find out that this book is called Out of the Silent Planet, as it's referring to planet Earth, where they forgot about their God. In my own broken ideas, it's hard for me to imagine a world without a fall. And so many times we focus on the symptom of them eating the fruit and disobeying God, but we don't quite focus on the root of that sin. And that root is the desire to be equal to God in power and knowledge. This is important for us to understand, because as we talk about imperialism, we find that this original root sin has evolved and taken many forms over the years, and one of them is imperialism. Imperialism is a policy of extending a country's power and influence through diplomacy or military force. Now, you might be thinking, okay, like I get the military force thing, that's bad, but diplomacy, it's agreements, it's conversations, it's a choice, right? Throughout history and the brokenness that we see in the world, when has it really been room for diplomacy and expanding empires? We can look at the Crusades of Muslim territories, or the Spanish Inquisition that persecuted Jews, or Spanish colonization of the Americas and the West Indies, destroying the Mayans, Aztecs, and Incans. We can look at British colonization of the Eastern world, or we can even look at Hitler and the Nazis. The fact of the matter is, there really hasn't been much choice in history. So you're probably thinking right now, okay, Chris, I didn't come to church to get a lecture or a history lesson. Why is this important to me as a Christian? This first ism of imperialism gives birth to our later isms that we're going to talk about in further weeks of elitism and sexism and racism. But this is also important to you because throughout history, most empires have expanded with the claim that they are fighting for Christ and that they're on a mission from God. You see, the Crusades were also called the Holy Wars. They came in the name of Christ, or used Christ as a way to expand because they know that you can use God to manipulate people. So much so that Hitler actually even quoted the Bible and quoted German theologian Martin Luther as a way to justify his genocide against the Jews. So some of the common characteristics that we see in imperialism are: 1, the pursuit or claim to be equal to God; 2, the pursuit of ultimate power, wealth, and influence; 3, dehumanization of other people groups; and 4, ultimately domination. We cannot be manipulated by these ideas. They are not of Christ. In fact, they are anti-Christ. We have seen time and time again imperialism and imperialistic ideas destroy the lives of so many people. And today we look at it and we think like, man, this problem is so big. What is the solution? I want to tell you that as the church, we have the solution. And that solution is the gospel. The good news that Jesus Christ has come, lived with us, died for us, and rose from the dead, and that he brought his kingdom of righteousness. That kingdom is right here and right now. We see that in Christ's kingdom, he flips all of our ideas of power on its head. He blesses the poor and the weak. He blesses those who are persecuted. He blesses those who are victimized. Unlike the characteristics of imperialism, the characteristics of the kingdom of Christ is loving kindness and justice and mercy. So as you're hearing this and you see the contrast in Christ's kingdom versus imperial domination, you might be asking yourself, what can I do to solve this? You don't got to start big. You can start small right now. I love Eugene Peterson's version of Matthew 10:5-10. He says this: Jesus sent his 12 harvest hands out with this charge. Don't begin by traveling to some far off place to convert unbelievers. And don't try to be dramatic by tackling some public enemy. Go to the lost and confused people right here in your community. Tell them that the kingdom is here. Bring health to the sick, raise the dead, touch the untouchable, kick out the demons. Because you have been treated generously, so live generously. Don't think you have to put on a fundraising campaign before you start. You don't need a lot of equipment. You are the equipment. And all you need to keep that going is 3 meals a day. So travel light. As we look around and see all of the problems in the world today, I want you to ask yourself, how can you be a part of the solution today in small ways? And how can you bring Christ's kingdom into the brokenness of our world?